Good morning, everyone. This is AV from Avera Advisors, live on this wonderful snowy Wednesday morning. It's a slightly different setup today because I am not in our offices. I'm in Nashville visiting our legislators and talking about a host of issues that are in this legislative session that are important to our region. So, things that I get to do on a daily basis other than be CEO at Avero. I guess it's one of my responsibilities as a business owner to participate in our local community's efforts to influence legislature. So, speaking of which, today we're going to talk about a few different things. Again, a slightly different format. Keep the questions coming in the chat box. Again, my name is AV. I'm the founder and CEO at Avero, and we are an independent consulting firm that helps governments across the country modernize their operations and find efficiencies. So, one of the things we'll talk about today is what's going on at the federal level with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. They couldn't have come up with a better name given the crypto and pop culture references that denotes. But we'll talk about DOGE, how they're finding efficiencies, what that means. We're seeing a lot of dollar signs, trillions of dollars being saved. There's lots of storytelling around what's being cut, what was being wasteful, and I went digging on the definition of efficiency, definition of waste, and how they're using AI or systems to find ways to cut cost, which is the primary goal for that initiative. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how some local governments are leveraging AI to streamline operations. Really important, relevant topic. Um, we've been talking about it in Nashville over the last couple of days, all the way from how do you, as legislators, read all of the documentation that's put in front of you? You have your legislative aids, but are you leveraging AI to sort of inform you on the things that you're asked to review and vote on? So, really fascinating discussions around that. And we'll talk about transformations in K through 12 education, focusing on analytics and adaptive learning tools. So, just doing a quick roundup on things that are relevant, things that are in the news, things that people are talking about. And if something interests you, pop in with a question or a comment. I love hearing from the audience. I love hearing where I might be wrong. Um, but let's dive in. The first big news is government efficiency. Uh, the feds are aiming for $2 trillion in budget cuts. And being in the government sector, we need to keep an eye out on what that means for our clients, what it means for ongoing work with it that we're doing with our clients and prospects. And primarily it's focused on efficiency. So if there are cuts, I think our clients are well positioned to take advantage of the opportunity to become more efficient. I think every project that we do has an efficiency angle to it, uh, whether we're implementing a new system, whether we are redesigning business processes or creating a new strategy for our clients. They are all from an angle of how do we do more with less? How do we not waste taxpayer dollars? And how do we take advantage of everything that's new and exciting today, aka AI? So, how is DOGE doing this? So, on the fraud side, things like improper management of Medicare and Medicaid, that there can be tremendous amounts of savings there, and I think that team is going to get there. But how do you use AI-based anomaly detection to prevent overbilling or unnecessary procedures? How do you stop taxpayer dollars from disappearing into a black hole? It all comes down to the boring stuff, right? If you're paying attention to um, again the news and what's being reported, lots of slashing budgets, removing programs, all of that's going on. But what next? Like how do you reduce the workforce by 20-30% at the federal level in departments like Federal Aviation Authority or the Treasury and expect outcomes to still happen? It comes down to the boring stuff. What's the strategy? What are the processes? What systems are you going to use in the future? So one of the things I saw yesterday was there was one of the systems that Treasury is using to disperse payments did not have, um, I mean, it had all the usual stuff, who you're paying, what amount, but it did not have a mandated field for tracking it by project or by grant or something like that. So the team went in and recoded the system to make the system ask for that information. So now you can track it back to when you're making payments going forward. You can now really track what the payments are for. So small things like that don't make the headlines, but it all comes down to the non-sexy stuff, right? What is the process? What systems are you using? Do you have the right kind of um, checks and balances built in? Ooh, questions are coming in. All right, how does the government define efficiency in this context? I think at this point, if you're only talking about the federal level, we're talking about money. Money saved on what they consider wasteful spending, right? Um, and then I think, like I said earlier, what happens next is going to be really important because you can cut funding, you can cut programs, and we're about to find out, right? In the next 4 to 6 months, we'll find out what impact the cuts have had on people, and then we'll have to pivot. How is DOGE using process intelligence tech to mine this excess spending? Um, I really don't know, right? I mean, I think we're watching news on systems being used to process mine or data mine and find holes in spending. The great thing is they're putting all of this data out there, right? It's all coming out through X or other platforms on what they're finding. How are agencies balancing automation-driven cost reductions with the need for human oversight and accountability? Yeah, that's a good one. I think they're taking what I would call the big machete approach, right? They're cutting people, cutting jobs. Um, there has been no talk of balancing automation-driven cost reductions. I think AI will play a big role in whatever happens next. Um, Reduction in the workforce, we'll have to see how that impacts the actual work that's being done. The grand theory is that um, they're cutting costs and cutting jobs where people weren't necessarily doing their jobs, right? That is the theory. And if we find out next that um, that wasn't true, or that wasn't completely true, then we'll have to really talk about um, how we're going to use AI and technology to do the stuff that people used to do in these agencies. So going back to my notes and what we wanted to talk about. So how are they using AI? Well, let's dive a little deeper into this. And why are we talking about this, right? We're not a news channel, but we are keenly interested in efficiency. We're keenly interested in government efficiency because identifying potential savings through AI and software and cutting costs sounds awesome in theory, but the real devil is in the details. Data governance, stakeholder buy-in, and ensuring that we are using technology ethically is really important. And we at Avero have a track record of providing strategies to our government clients and prospects to do this right, right? The DOGE and all of this news around it seems great because it's new and exciting, but we've been doing this for years at the local level. Of course, not in the same way. Our approach is more future-looking, forward-looking. It's more strategic. We help our clients identify inefficiencies in current operations and then find better ways of doing it, either through automation, through technology, through redesigning their organization in a more strategic way. So going forward, a lot of that work will have a big AI um, component to it, right? We've come up with an AI maturity model that plays a big role in understanding where your organization stands today and how capable are you for taking advantage of all the cool things that AI brings to the table. So we'll talk about that in a future livecast. Questions coming in? It's not. Okay. So let's talk about fraud and how is AI used to detect fraud. There's a lot of news and articles out there on the capabilities of AI and the promise of AI in detecting fraud. But how do you do it? How is it actually deployed? without letting algorithms run amok? How do you put the gates in that provide safety for um, mistakes that AI might make? Every day that you use ChatGPT, there's a line at the bottom that says it might make a mistake. So let's see. So let's talk about fraud detection in the context of what's happening today. So how do you detect fraud today? It's considered to be pay and chase, right? A lot of times governments um, follow the model of if there's a PO and an invoice shows up, let's pay it. And then you chase it down later when someone says, hey, that invoice shouldn't have been paid. There might be some fraud going on there. And the pay and chase model has been going on for a while. So how do you change that by using AI? It's widely inefficient. It's like discovering that your credit card was stolen, and a year later you're trying to dispute the $500 charge for, I don't know, inflatable flamingos. So it just goes back to doing the processing right, the process um, design of the process. How do you set your policies, and what kind of milestones and gates do you have in your internal processes? What kind of internal controls do you have? Because yeah, you can use AI to detect that, but you'll have to do the process work before and tell AI what you need to look for before you let these models do fraud detection for you. Um, but it can be done. AI could revolutionize fraud detection by flagging suspicious billing patterns or claims, but it can't just happen without doing the upfront homework, right? Again, it goes back to doing the hard work, the non-sexy work of thinking about your processes, your internal controls, and then telling AI what needs to be done. So building strategic frameworks come first, outlining clear goals, metrics, and lines of authority. Because again, if you've tried using AI to do any kind of data analytics, if you're even if you're using the best model in ChatGPT Pro, it still needs to be trained really, really well. So building the framework, outlining clear goals, setting metrics and lines of authority is the first step to take in creating sort of an AI-enabled fraud detection process. Um, Developing robust systems. AI, ensuring that the AI has secure data feeds and real-time analytics is really critical. We've talked about this a lot. AI is not going to work for you if your data isn't pristine. If your databases and whatever stores of data you're using, your shared drives, your Dropboxes, your OneDrive, if your data is not organized, if it's not set up correctly, AI is not going to work for you. So the second most important thing to do is developing robust data management processes. Again, goes back to processes and policies, and then establishing repeatable processes, setting up oversight committees, automated reports, well-defined escalation paths. Because what happens when an AI systems, sorry, I didn't mean to have a thumbs up there. What happens once you detect the fraud? What happens next? What's the escalation process? What is the management approach to all of this is really, really important. So where do you start building a strategic framework? I think strategic planning is critical. Uh, we do a lot of IT strategic planning, and we do a lot of AI strategic planning these days. By the way, really cool line of work that we have just launched, and it includes um, an AI maturity model. Again, think about stair stepping this. When you're at level one, you probably shouldn't be buying something and trying to implement it. And level one means you don't have all of the things I've talked about: repeatable processes, documented policies, a good IT organization, um, and a technology strategy that spans 3 to 5 years. That's level one. You need to get there before you start implementing AI tools. I know there's a huge rush and a sense of urgency to implement the next chatbot, to implement the next AI-enabled uh, customer service rep. Do that, but I think you also need to be ready for the next thing. How are you really going to take advantage of an agentic workforce or um, chatbots that really think for themselves without human intervention? You need to think of all of that before you launch into the future, and we can help you do that. So where do you start in building a strategic framework? Call us. Let's work on an AI strategy together. Let's see where you stand on your AI maturity model, or AI maturity journey, and let's get you to level 4 or 5. Um, that's where you start. Okay, so that's AI fraud detection and DOGE. Again, lots remains to be seen, and it all comes back to the boring stuff, right? The boring stuff meaning, how do you do processes? How do you do strategy? How do you do policies? So the next topic we're going to talk about today is um, local governments and AI. Again, lots of cool conversations going on, lots of vendors and lots of, excuse me, software providers um, selling the best of what's available today, right? Lots of great chatbots, lots of great customer service reps, agentic frameworks. There's a lot of promise in the air, and we're diving deep into it at Avero. Um, so a few examples that have sort of caught my attention recently, on automating the work of government through AI, right? Palm Beach County, Florida, they claim to have saved $1.9 million annually by using AI to classify, extract, and enter data from thousands of documents. So we've seen this recently. We had Erica Olson from Madison AI on here a couple of weeks ago, and Erica's work and Madison AI's work involves public documentation, which is pretty cool. Go check them out, because every government agency, every quasi-government agency has a board of commissioners, of a council of council members that have to put all of their business out to the public. If you go on any city or county's website, you'll see their board minutes, agendas, budgets, everything is public. So using that data and working with these agencies, a lot of AI vendors, sorry, that word again, AI software providers are um, creating these tools where we can go and actually talk with that data, instead of having to go through years of historical information and 200-page documents. You can actually use AI to communicate with that data. So it's being deployed in a lot of places, and it's super cool to watch. And it works because I think the county set up some clear data pipelines, training protocols, and an ongoing maintenance plan. Again, if you're going to buy an AI enabled something, make sure that your backend is secure, that make sure that you have the right data, that it's in the right places, that it's the right data, because AI hallucinates. Even the best models do that today. So the magic lies in not necessarily buying the thing and paying the subscription fee. The hard work is, how do you train that model? How do you make it useful? How do you feed it the right data? And we're going through this internally. We're automating a lot of processes internally. We are AI enabling a lot of processes. Um, this isn't AI today, but could be in the future, right? My avatar has been made, but it's not prime time ready, because it's just, if you look at an AI avatar, you know it's an AI avatar. So back to Palm Beach County, I think they did a lot of the heavy lifting upfront, because documents don't magically process themselves. You need a well-designed system to keep automation accurate and up to date. So again, if you are in the market for an AI-enabled something, make sure that you have the technological and organizational maturity to take those processes and systems on. All right, questions, comments. All right, Kyler says, are any two local government strategic frameworks the same? How do you know what is best for your unique community? Great question. I think a lot of it is standard, because you are a government agency, you are in business to provide services to your community. So from that standpoint, they're the same. Um, a lot of times they're unique sort of um, infrastructure needs, their ground reality is different. They've made decisions 20, 30 years ago that impact them today in terms of systems and processes and how they're set up. It also differs from agency to agency based on what kind of services they provide, right? Some cities are full service organizations, they have police, fire, some have hospitals, hospitals, um, EMR, things like that. So it really depends on what services are being provided. So the strategy or strategic frameworks will differentiate from city to city. But when it comes to AI maturity, I think the same frameworks can be applied. You're just looking at it from a different sort of lens because traditionally, when we do IT strategic planning, you used to look at your tech stack, your enterprise systems, your cybersecurity, and now you need to look at how can AI help you in the future? Is an agentic workforce um, going to be useful to this organization? I think yes is the answer for most organizations, but to what extent and how is going to be really important. Because here's my theory. Historically, we would have, most agencies, if you have an antiquated ERP system or HCM system, your options were limited. You had two options. One, stick with what you have um, and remain inefficient. Two, raise the money and the political capital to go out and buy a new thing that's now going to take 2 or 3 years and cost you X millions of dollars. I think a third option is going to emerge, and I think that's why most major software providers and uh, implementers are coming up with an agentic framework that will either live within their system or they're going to sell it to um, their customers as an add-on. So that's going to change the landscape because traditionally, again, the strategy was your ERP system or your HCM system doesn't work, go get a new one. And then there's a whole other method of doing that. The third option that is about to emerge is can your can your organization use an agentic workforce with your existing legacy ERP system or HCM system and get you the outcomes you need? I don't know that it's ready for prime time yet. Again, I'm using that word again, but it's being talked about a lot. I think that third option is going to emerge, and as we create strategic frameworks and strategic plans for our clients, I think that's going to play a huge role in defining their strategy for the future. Because not everybody can, not all of our clients can take on a $10 or $20 million modernization effort, and I think the third option is going to be fascinating to watch. Checking for questions. Don't see any. All right. So the next case study or sort of news item I want to talk about is AI-driven priority-based budgeting. And a few counties of cities have been doing that. Collier County, Florida, identified 22% of its budget for reallocation using AI insights. Wonder how they did that. My theory would be that priority-based budgeting is more than just flipping a switch and telling AI to do it. Um, I think it requires a strategic framework for analyzing historical spend, historical budgets, community feedback, financial data, policy goals, looking at the macro environment for the economy, and again everything that is coming down the pipe from federal initiatives like DOGE. Um, and again, I think it goes back to again the boring stuff: processes for implementing changes and communicating them to the public. AI is a tool. AI enabled X, Y, and Z will help you, but it won't unless you have the right frameworks in place. So cool, they've identified 22% of budget for reallocation. Excellent. And if I were doing this, I would think you need to feed a model historical budget information and then get feedback. It's really cool. I mean, someone asked me the other day, how do we learn about more about AI? It really is on you. We can do seminars and we can do live streams like this, but if you're not educating yourself, and there's a lot of avenues of doing this, go on YouTube, go on our channel, go on several other channels that are out there, and just dive deep. Spend your own time. Don't expect your employer to just set up a classroom setting for you to learn about AI. Do it. It's out there for you. Questions coming in. What about, hang on. Are the requirements gathering processes the same for ERP and AI systems? Ooh, great question. So requirements gathering itself is changing, right? We're going away from Excel-based 10,000 line items on things that used to matter 20 years ago, but they don't anymore, right? You need to make it focused on outcomes. So it's changing anyway. How do you put ERP and AI systems together and ACM systems? Start with the outcomes. Once again, you don't need to go down to how you want this AI enabled system to get to the outcome for you. But if you're not clear on the outcomes, you're not going to get any AI to do the thing for you. We've been trying to automate several things again at Avero, and it's helped us learn about AI a lot. Because if you are to believe any of the live streams or videos online or YouTube channels that I just talked about, it seems so simple. You just take the thing and you assign it to an AI agent and you do it in make.com or N810 or N810, I don't know how you call it, and the thing just does the thing. But there are so many moving parts, so many nuances to it. You need to really understand how APIs work. You need to understand how data cleanliness is important, because if you're feeding the AI LLM garbage data, it's going to understand garbage data. It's going to uh, come up with garbage outcomes for you. So requirements really start with outcomes, and then you break it down. You really chunk it down into what does it mean? Let's take an example. We've been trying to automate our um, RFP analysis process internally, meaning our business development or strategic growth team looks at hundreds of RFPs every year. They read hundreds of RFPs. Then we decide which ones to go after. And we're trying to automate that process using AI. So the first pass of that was, here's 100 RFPs, read them, and tell us which ones we should pursue based on what you know about Avero. And it got it all wrong. It was it was in the ballpark, but it wanted us to chase engineering and architecture sort of RFPs. It said no to some that were squarely in our ballpark or in our wheelhouse. And so we've had to do a lot of thinking about what outcomes mean and how do you break those down. So skills like process analysis, requirement definition, strategic planning, documentation, those are not going away anytime soon, because AI systems want you to tell them exactly how you want them to think. And you can do that only when you do things like process mapping, because really you need to break it down and chunk it down for them before they can make useful automations with it. What about proof of concept or a phased approach to agentic AI? Is that something you'd recommend in the public sector? Absolutely. It needs to be a phased approach. And the way I would phase it is, one, find out where you stand. Where are you in terms of your maturity as far as AI is concerned, and what can you take on? That's step one. And then you should be doing some pilot testing. Pick a small process, pick a small project, and do a pilot. See how it works before you let AI run amok in your organization. Should there be a standardized regulations across agencies for data sharing, or does each agency need its own tailored approach? I don't know if regulation is the right word. I think there are standards for data sharing, and it's a good question in the end, because you want eventually to be able to regionalize some processes, some outcomes, right? You have a lot of regional agencies, councils of government that we work with that would love to have standardized data and access to data for their member agencies. Um, but again, it comes down to basics. There's several different data standardization methodologies out there that have been around for a while, and that I was going to say they still apply, but really they're more relevant now because, again, if your data is not pristine, if it's not standardized for an agentic system to understand, yes, you can train it on unstructured data, but now you're just talking about adding more time and effort and money to the process. Um, Hopefully, I answered that question, but let's go back to what cool things are happening in AI. in local government. So we talked about document processing and priority-based budgeting. Shouldn't every budget be priority-based? And then AI-powered resident chatbots. So chatbots have been around for a while, right? You've had static chatbots, you've had it's almost like an IVR tree where you used to, you know, tell the chatbot exactly what to do. And now you have generative AI chatbots that crawl your website and learn about your business and become this intelligent conversation with anyone coming to your website. Again, needs to be trained because you don't want a chatbot making up stuff on your website. Um, but chatbots are handling several things, and I think as you think about the labor shortages and how some industries are not able to backfill positions, it's really important to understand the context of chatbots and phone-based customer service reps that are not non-human. They're, agents. Um, Training them is really important, but I think agencies like public housing or utilities, this is where you're going to see um, agentic chatbots and customer service reps deployed. The first wave of this is happening today. You might be speaking to um, an AI agent on the phone and not know that you're speaking to an AI. But it's scary, but it's cool for agencies like, again, public housing that have customers that speak several different languages, right? We have clients in the Bay Area, for example, and if you go to their offices, you'll see that they have all the notices in 15 or 20 different languages. So how do you staff a customer service frontline when you are dealing with that many languages? This is where AI is going to play a huge role. Uh, because if I'm calling and I don't speak English, I can ask for my native language. And on your end as a client, you don't necessarily have to build a specific IVR call tree for this. You can just train um, an AI customer service thing to do it for you. And I say thing because it can be anything. It can be a chatbot, it could be a phone system, it could be an app, but it comes down to training. So they might look flashy or might look new. Like I said, chatbots have been around. It's kind of been the first advent of AI. But really, if they don't integrate with your CRM or ticketing software or ERP or HRM, HRIS, it's not going to work. Maintaining data security and having an escalation process, right? AI can get lost in the loop. So how do you, as a human, then once you realize you're not talking to a human, how do you get it to point you to a human? Again, comes down to training. Questions coming in. Does the average local gov AI IT team have the bandwidth to handle the maintenance of the chatbot? Should the IT team be handling the chatbot? Is the real question. And if yes, then they need to make the bandwidth, right? So website management sort of falls in this weird category within local governments that we've served. Not 100% across the board, but in some county organizations, we've dealt with um, a website that was built 20 years ago by an IT person that just exists. It's like it's a step above from a stone tablet. And when they start taking on the redesign of the website, the question is often asked, should IT be doing this or should this be in PR or communications or some other organization? And I think the answer is both. I think IT should own the platform, obviously, and today you don't have to build a website from scratch. You have great platforms like Civic Plus or some others that allow you to just deploy your website quickly and using templates. Um, but again, the key in a project like that depends on what data are you going to put in there, right? So IT is not the best equipped to come up with the copy for the website. they're not the best equipped to, if you're using a third-party uh, web developer, your IT people may not be the best people to um, manage that process because, they're responsible for technology, not the words that show up on your website. And I'm speaking about website because chatbots will live on your website, and you need to integrate that into your website. So who does that? Who trains the chatbot? I think that could be IT, but the copy of the website, the data that the chatbot is supposed to be trained on, how it talks to people, there needs to be collaboration between IT and other departments. Will chatbots ever be able to replace human decision making in complex scenarios, or will they always need a human in the loop? It depends. Will they be able to replace human decision making? Yeah, but should we be trusting that in like high stakes processes? I think human in the loop is really, really important. Going back to our example of trying to automate the RFP decision making process, we need a human in the loop because I don't trust the automation yet. When it gets good, we'll decide. But the final decisions need to be made by humans in that example. So it depends on what the process is and what you're trying to get an AI agent to do. Many ERP vendors claim to have AI-driven insights. How do we separate real AI capabilities from marketing buzzwords? Use the word vendor. I got a lot of grief the other day from a friend of ours for using vendor, and it got me thinking. I just posted a video yesterday on vendors versus software providers, partners. Vendors is kind of transactional. But anyway, to your question, how do we separate real AI capabilities from marketing buzzwords? There's a lot of marketing buzzwords. It's super easy to create a mock-up of a thing that you're going to build in the future. Vaporware used to be a thing. I mean, it still is. That phrase is used for things that don't exist that you're selling. You can easily create marketing on, Canva. You can get AI to create you a product brochure and start selling it before you actually have built it. So, word of caution, when you're looking at demos and software providers are telling you that this great thing's coming down, this is no different from our advice uh, to our clients and prospects over the years. If you can't see it in a demo, if they can't show you a use case, it doesn't exist. There's no such thing as it'll be here by the time you go live next year. Same thing applies here. So um, if someone claims to have built something that's cool, make them show you. Next question is, I want to know if procurement can be replaced completely by AI. Can be? Yes. Should it? Probably not. Um, and I think we either released or about to release a deep dive into procurement systems on YouTube. Go check it out. It'll tell you the nuances. That in that video, I walked through the whole process on how to automate or modernize your procurement processes. And there's several parts of the process where human in the loop is going to be really important, right? You're talking about spending government taxpayer dollars, and you really want to make sure that a leave AI aside. Your processes should be automated. You should be using modern systems to do things like budget checks and making sure that you're not overspending your authority and things like that. But when you layer AI on top of that, you can you can make things even more automated. You can make better decisions on how to budget for certain things, right? How many sweatshirts did we buy last year for Parks and Rec? How many were we budgeted for? How much did we spend with a particular vendor? And you can use that in your budgeting process that then dictates how procurements run and how efficiently you're doing things like inventory control and minimum order quantities and things like that. So if procurement can be replaced completely, possibly, but should it? Probably not, right? And eventually it'll come down to human preference. A lot of the things that we do today will be replaceable by AI. including this live stream. Like, I can make a video today of myself speaking, and it's not me. They've taken my videos and created my avatar, and it looks a little funny, but can be done. But should it be done? Because I think people tune in to hear it from the human, not robots. We're running up against time, but I am going to wrap it up quickly with the last couple of things I want to talk about today. Um, so there's a lot of cool things going on in the industry, and I think we'll do more of this where I kind of do a roundup of cool things I've seen. The last thing I wanted to talk about is K through 12 and analytics. So, and I think this applies to higher ed also. There's a lot of modernization going on in the higher ed sector, right? You've got end of life for systems. You have um, universities and college campuses wanting to modernize, and it's not just ERP and HCM in that world. Student information system is really, really important. So that landscape is changing fast, and we need to talk about why they want to change, how can they leverage AI, and and how this is a great time to be taking on a modernization effort. Um, so what I've seen in the market so far, what's been cool is the analytics piece of the K through 12 sector. Huge responsibility, obviously, on educating our children. And as we work through some major ERP implementations in that sector, we're seeing huge opportunities again for AI to consume data. Of course, you'll have to build internal closed loop models and use that to really make database decisions. So questions that arise in that sector is privacy, right? It's sensitive student data. How can you use that without putting it out into the world for the open AIs and the deep seeks of the world to consume that data? So you really need to think about closed loop internal LLMs that are yours, that only consume your data, and then use that for providing you the analytics that you need. So I'm going to wrap up now, unless there's other questions. I don't see any. But everything we've talked about today, DOGE, AI, how do you implement AI, analytics, all of that comes down to the brass tacks. Let's get down to the brass tacks. Your strategy, your business processes, your organization, your people. How ready is any of the above? How ready are you as an organization to take advantage of this massive opportunity? Um, Reach out to us. Let's talk about AI maturity. Let's talk about where you stand in the on the Avero AI maturity model, and that should and will dictate or guide your way towards taking advantage of at a lower end chatbots and customer service reps, non-human customer service reps, and at the higher end, completely automating processes for your organization. Not replacing people, human in the loop is the way to go right now, but your processes will need to be designed in such a way that um, you're taking advantage of both human intelligence and artificial intelligence. Um, and so again, goes down to the basics: people, process, technology, making sure all of that's lined up before you go buy something. And if you are considering buying a product that you really like, if you saw at a conference, you saw a webinar, you think that would be useful, and if you want to run it by us, just reach out. We don't have to have a ongoing project for you to ask us questions on product fit, but definitely, even if you're close to buying something, think about your maturity, your organization's maturity, and your strategy. Questions are coming in. Tyler asks if the UK is leading the way in AI regulations. Has this stifled innovation? No one wants to buy $1 million systems they can't use. Where is the US regarding regulations that we need to be aware of? I think we're going the other way compared to Europe, given the new administration's stance on regulations in general, and people that are in charge of AI policy. Right? David Sachs is the is the czar for all things AI and crypto, and those things are related. So I think we're going to see less regulation. I think they're thinking about some overarching regulation that doesn't stifle innovation, creativity, and initiative. And we don't want to do that. So we'll have to see. Keep an eye out for everything that's going on at the federal level. Of course, we'll come back and report on that. But I think less regulation is going to be the way, in my humble opinion, in the US going forward. And think about it, all of the innovations happening here. I just started reading a book called, um, sorry, but it's a good listen so far, and it's called The Technological Republic: Hard Power, Soft Belief, and the Future of the West, a book by Alexander Karp. He's the CEO at Palantir, and they're doing some fascinating work around modernizing software and how it's deployed. Um, and the premise of the book is that America remains, we remain the preeminent power in terms of innovation, and we need to take that very seriously. Um, and so all of the great things are going to come out of this great country going forward. And I think the new administration is doing a good job of taking away impediments to that innovation and growth. Of course, the risk and the downsides are how do you then keep it ethical, keep it from getting out of hand. And that's why we're here for these discussions and any questions you might have around that. Give me a shout, give me a LinkedIn, or you can reach out to any of us through our website or any of our social platforms. But I will see you next week, and we'll talk about some other fascinating stuff. But signing off from Nashville. Thank you.